Hey guys, welcome back. I am still so in love with this shrine. I've come over here so many times to just take a look and it makes me so happy. But that's not what we're going to do this episode. I'm not just going to stand here and look at it because I think you'd probably find that a little bit boring. So today what we're going to do is we're going to be working on this little valley between our two hills because I really want to see this whole area come to life. And I thought it might also be nice to break this section down and talk through each of the steps I go through when doing something like this. I mean, I love a full time lapse as much as the next person, but it can hide some of the process of actually designing and making a build like this. So let's slow things down and take a proper look. So, the first thing I find helpful, as you can probably tell from just how I make this series, is to break bigger projects down into more manageable chunks. So today we're going to be working on this valley from the river all the way to the courtyard and to the portal over there. And then also I think just going up the side of the Slime Temple hill. This is actually a relatively big area for me, but I think it makes sense as a chunk to work on because those are actually some pretty defined boundaries. Then once I've worked out the space, I like to decide the purpose of the area. This doesn't have to be anything super specific, but I do like to ask myself what this area is. So in this project, it's tended to be a question of, is this a garden, is it a building, is it a shrine, and so on. These things will obviously differ from project to project depending on the theme and style you're going for, but in this case I decided this is going to be more of a garden since we have quite a lot of buildings in this area. Then once you've worked out at least a vague purpose of the area, the next thing I do is try to define a shape or flow of the space. I find it can be quite hard when you're just presented with a blank expanse like this, so I'd like to come in and, in the case with this project, make a path so I actually know what I'm working with. And I think quite a lot of people will make a building first and then make a path to it, and obviously that can really work, but I'm currently finding that, especially for these more garden spaces, making paths first can actually be quite helpful because then you know what's closest to people and what's more in the background right from the start. So let's put a path down and see what we've got going on. I think this will do quite nicely. I do really love a little meandering path, and these stepping stones are really helping to differentiate the garden areas from the more functional spaces like up to the shrine or to one of the main temples. Also, we already had the base of the waterfall at the end, so we obviously needed to work with that, and I think curving away from it at the start and then back towards it should hopefully give a really nice view of the waterfall as you walk along the path, which will be wonderful. I do really love thinking about the sightlines as you're building, so knowing what you can see from where and if certain things are hidden until you turn a corner can help you create a much bigger impact than if something's in full view the whole time. Plus, the other main benefit of this path design is that it gives us plenty of space to add other things as well, which brings us on to our next step, which is to add any main features to the area. This will often be the thing that you decided in your purpose of the area, so if the purpose is to build a building, then that's the next thing you're going to want to do. For us, this doesn't really have any main features as defined by its purpose, but I think I do want to use some of this space opposite the waterfall to add a little something, because I think that will really help make this end area feel like a destination instead of just being a path that kind of leads past a waterfall. So, let's build our main feature. I think that works perfectly. I am actually really loving mirroring certain elements of the witch side of the island and making them all stone and a bit worn down on this side, and this pergola felt perfect for this area. On the witch side, this was actually covering a bench, which I did like, but I decided to go with a water feature over here, which may feel a little strange given it's right next to a very big water feature, but I figure it was probably more actually to do with convenience, since they might have been able to use the pressure of the waterfall to create the fountain instead of needing to use pumps or something. But I digress. The important thing is that now we've got our main features in place. For me, that's of course the waterfall and this pergola, but you'll notice, at least for my project, we've still got some pretty huge spaces that could do with being filled. So now we need to identify which spaces need bigger things and work out what we can put there. For me, I think these areas that have the azalea leaves are probably our biggest empty gaps that could really do with something relatively big to fill them. And as for what those things might be, this will once again depend on your project. If you're working on a city, you might add a street vendor, a parked car, a phone booth, or anything like that. For me, since this is a garden, I think our bigger areas are mostly going to be trees, but also maybe some flower beds, just so we have some height variation and all the trees don't start to blend together. And since we know where we're building, and pretty much what we're building, let's get that sorted. I always feel this is about the point that an area is really starting to come together. We've got our biggest elements in place, and the overall vibe is going to start coming through. However, with only these big items in place, it can still sometimes feel a little empty. Now, empty spaces can be good and helpful when you want certain things to pop. Overcrowding the space can definitely be harmful to a project, but at this point in the project, I like to spend quite a lot of time just walking around and trying to find where the emptiness is helpful and where it could really do with being filled. For example, I'm perfectly happy with this space between the waterfall and this tree being pretty empty because it's already quite a busy area with the two trees and the waterfall itself, so adding something here might actually be more distracting than enhancing. However, this little space over here by the side of the path feels very empty to me. This may be because we haven't really built anything up on the hill yet, but I feel like when you're at this point on the path, it'll be really nice to have just a little something here. The same is true of the very end of our path, which feels like it just kind of ends for no reason currently, so I definitely want to add something here. And I also think I want to add something over by that tree, but I think I actually want to put it on the other side. I was very strongly considering adding something in front of the tree around here as well, but I can't think of anything that I feel would enhance the area, so instead I think I'm going to leave it quite empty, and then make sure the thing we add on the other side of the tree is quite a pop of colour so it draws the eye despite it being further away and probably partially hidden. I also think I want to add another little archway to welcome you into the garden. Like with the stepping stone path, I feel like that gives a really nice division which really indicates that you're entering a garden. But now we've decided our smaller areas that need attention, let's fill them up! We are almost done with this area now, and I am loving it. we've actually only got one more major step left, and then I think we'll be able to call this whole bit complete. But just before we do that, I quickly wanted to talk about this area by the courtyard, because it currently feels quite empty and probably like it could have done with some of those smaller details that I was just talking about. And honestly, that might have been the right thing to do. I thought about it for quite a long time, but I ended up deciding to leave this particular section quite empty, apart from our two larger details. Why? Well, I realised that almost no matter what direction you look at this area from, your eye is always going to be drawn away from it. From this side of the path, the slime temple is completely dominating your view, so much that adding something else here would, I think, end up feeling too busy and actually detracting from the experience instead of adding to it. And when you're looking at it from this side, you've got the morning tower, the portal, and the winch temple all drawing your attention away. So obviously, it goes without saying that everything I'm saying in this video is incredibly subjective. If you would have added a detail in here, then that's great. Honestly, let me know what you thought of in the comments, and maybe it'll just be something that I hadn't considered. But overall, I felt like keeping this area quite simple would probably actually work in its favour. But with that being said, we can now move on to the final step, which is to add all of the fine details and get rid of all of these torches. Because you may notice that while this is all looking very nice, it also feels very manufactured. Like, it doesn't feel like it's all really part of the world, but instead like these things were just placed there, which obviously they were because we literally just placed them there, but we don't want it to feel like that in the end. We want them to feel like they naturally belong in the space, and adding small little details can often be the key to this. And it won't come as much of a surprise to you if you've watched my other videos in this project, or just looked up this hill, that I'm going to be using this tried and tested mixture of greenery that I've chosen for this island to really try and embed this whole area into the surrounding landscape. And then, hopefully once that's done, we'll have a lovely new area that really feels like a proper part of this project. We've done it! A whole new area from start to finish, and hopefully with a bit more explanation than usual that was maybe helpful in some way. I would love to hear how you guys approach projects like this in your worlds, especially if you do a very different process. I absolutely love hearing all the different ways people build in this game. And I mean, overall, I'd call that a very successful day. And we have ended up with a very lovely little garden. I am so happy with this. I really do hope you enjoyed today's episode. I know it was a little different, but I actually really enjoyed making it. And next time, I think we may start to tackle that giant space we've got next to the slime temple, because that is absolutely begging for some work. But we'll see if any other inspiration strikes in the meantime. Until then, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!